the Oklahoma City Water Utilities Trust meeting for March the 16th be in order. The first item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes of the March 2nd meeting.
Approval. Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Are there comments, questions, additions? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The minutes are approved. Next item, item 3, is the consent docket. There's a number of items on the consent docket.
Move the consent docket subject to individual consideration.
Second. I have a motion and a second to approve the consent docket. Are there items to be considered individually?
Mr. Chairman, I just have a sort of a general question, trying to fill in a gap of ignorance I have. 3B1 is a sanitary sewer rehabilitation. In a rehabilitation project like that, do we actually go in and replace all the old sewer lines? Is there a way we can sleeve those? I read an article a year or so ago about using sleeves to extend the life of existing pipes. Is that something we do as well?
Yes, it is. Sometimes there's usually a mix of improvements depending on what we find when we're there. The sleeving process it comes in different ways. There's slip lining where you pull a pipe through and essentially make it a liner inside the original pipe. There are some in situ technologies where the pipe, it's called fold-in form, where the pipe is set with, it's a fiberglass liner typically that's set with a rosin using hot water or hot air to create that liner. It's a different method. So there are a lot of choices, lots of different brands, but yes, we use those kinds of technologies, choosing the best application. There's another technology called pipe bursting, where you essentially pull a pipe through the same location. I'm sorry, I'm going on and on about that. I love that stuff. And then there's some point repairs. There are places that you can do nothing except to go in from a hole, like a hole in the ground. And
in the hierarchy of options available, is digging in and replacing the lowest on the totem pole in terms of selection?
Not necessarily. It depends upon what we're doing. Sometimes that's really the best thing to do. It's frequently the most expensive thing to do. In backyards, we like using what are called no-dig technologies wherever we can. Where the technology is today, though, is that you still have to, if you were slip-lining the whole pipe in a block, let's say, you have to dig up the individual connections to reconnect them properly.
Okay.
There's always, the no-dig has become a misnomer.
Okay, thank you. No-dig is sort of like our non-kill policy for our... It doesn't really mean what it says. Okay, thank you.
I wanted to bring to your attention that we have one item that's a purchase. Thank you, Brett. It's item 3C1. This is line maintenance's program to kill tree roots inside pipes. There's been a lot of discussion among the two vendors about who the best chemical, which is the best chemical to use. We're going to try to use both in what we will call a pilot program. We're hoping that both are successful. Roots contribute about 30% of all sewer backups and overflows in the country, and at least 30% here as well. So we're pleased to be re-implementing the root control program. Not sure what the long-term program is. Both of the chemicals used are things that kill plants. One's called a desiccant, the other's called a fumigant. They're both commonly used, but both are herbicide pesticides that are kind of nasty chemicals to use as well.
Any other comments on the consent docket? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The consent docket is approved. Next item is item 4, the reports. There are a series of 3 reports.
Move to receive the reports.
Second.
A motion and a second to receive the reports. Are there comments on any of the reports?
Just a question on the report that deals with lake levels. How do these compare historically at this time of year with previous years? Are we ahead, behind, or even? These kind of reports are nice, but unless you have some historical perspective, you can't really tell whether we're winning or losing.
We'll work on that. We're very much ahead. Lake Hefner in a typical winter would not be full. We'd be filling it up in April and May typically. Canton Lake is very close to full, about a foot from the top, and that's unusually good for this time of year. Lake Draper, unfortunately, because we're not pumping from Atoka, part of the year this year is low. It's at actually today it's at 179.3, I think. Pardon me, 1179.3. It has been just a fairly continuously wet winter, although not huge rains, but generally wet.
Any other comments? I appreciate the report on the police activity. That situation has generated a great deal of interest among a lot of folks that I know that are involved in leasing that ground out there, and I suspect if we're serious about how we go about, and I don't mean that we haven't been serious in the past, but if we look at aggressively pursue that, we may have some interest in people wanting to bid on that land. We may be able to at least from people that are already leasing, there seems to be more than one party interested in leasing it. So, and that way it might even attract some people from the outside. So.
In view of what the police found this time, the meth lab kind of things, would there be any virtue, or maybe we do this already, is periodically have the inspection of the property out there to look at the use, to make sure that we're not reporting some kind of a...
We're improving that process.
It's kind of interesting in one sense in the way that the property out there has developed with lots of dead-end streets and bridges out. It's a little more difficult to monitor it in the way you would normally monitor properties because, like I say, that we've chosen not to repair the bridges and not to put asphalt on the streets and so forth. And so the result is that some of those areas are getting more and more difficult to access. But I've always thought that one day we might look at all that and realize the actual value of that asset, 6,000 acres located inside the city limits of Oklahoma City, and try to do better with it than just leasing it for grazing. I mean, it's such a valuable asset. I mean, that many acres located inside the corporate city limits, and many not far from water lines in some cases. And it's just...
Wouldn't any use, though, we make of that have to be compatible with the ultimate uses of the reservoir?
Well, you want to hear my story again about that? 25 years ago, I was here and asked the question about how soon we were going to do that, and I was told we'll come back in about 25 years and we'll tell you. Well, here I am. Nobody thought I'd come back 25 years later. Here I am 25 years later, and the answer is virtually the same as it was 25 years ago.
Another 25?
And that's not a bad thing. Technology and a lot of things have happened to make that different, you know, not the least of which is the cost of power to pump water up from southeastern Oklahoma is much greater. But you never know. We certainly don't want to do anything that would jeopardize our ability to do that, but I have the feeling that's well off into the future, that it may be more economical to development, our ability to treat water at one location than it would be to build further storage for at least the next 25 years. Anyway, I appreciate the work on that. That's been something I've been interested in. I've talked to staff about it a few times, and I appreciate very much the report. We have a motion and a second to approve the reports. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Reports are approved. Next item are items to be considered individually. The first item is item 5A. It's ratification of the trust payments from February 10th through March 9th.
Move approval.
Second?
Motion and a second to pay the bills. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Item 5A is approved. Item 5B is recommend approval of permit dealer license with Mr. Tackle to sell boating and fishing permits.
Is Mr. Tackle his name, or is that just a trade name for the operation?
I'm pretty sure that's the trade name for this.
I was hoping so.
We have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve item 5B. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? 5B is approved. Item 5C is approve Amendment 8 to the service agreement with Veola.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve the service agreement.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question. It talks about the adjustments being a reflection of increase in CPI, and everything I've read indicated this last year we did not have an increase in CPI. Which CPI measurement did we use in this particular calculation?
We don't have the exact one that we're using this time, but depending upon the timing of when a contract was last approved from the original date, you can go from month to month or annual to annual. And I think this one's calendar year to calendar year,
That's my recollection.
which is 1% at this time, 1.0183%.
The biggest increase would
It
be...
says the U.S. all urban consumers U.S. average.
Pardon me again?
It's all urban consumers U.S. average.
Includes the cost of peanut butter and all those important things that
Yes.
affect the operation of water treatment plant.
The major portion of the increase, though, was on the electrical side of the equation.
That's well justified, I'm sure.
You'd like that better?
So that's
Yeah, I
okay?
like that better, yes. I know you get the right answer eventually.
Further comments? Have a motion?
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve item 5C. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5C is approved. Item 5D is adopt a resolution agreeing to file an application with the Water Resources Board for financial assistance.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Have a motion and a second to approve item 5D. Are there comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5D is approved. 5E, resolution filing another application with the Water Resources Board for financial assistance from the Drinking Water State Revolving Loan Program.
Move the resolution.
Second.
Motion and a second on item 5E. Are there comments, questions?
Mr. Chairman, just to note that we're approving those resolutions to put us in the position of acquiring any additional ARRA federal funds that may be coming this year.
Further comments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5E is approved. Item 5F, adopt a resolution approving the scope of service with Thompson and Associates for an analysis of OG&E's electric rates.
Move approval.
Second.
Have a motion and a
I have a
second.
question. I'm sorry, Mr. Chairman.
Okay.
I hate to ruin your record for speedy meetings, but Larry Thompson does a great job. I've worked with him before, and he's very competent, so I have no problem with bringing him on board. But I was surprised that this kind of capability wasn't resident someplace in the city. Rate comparisons, it seems like we would do that as a matter of course for a lot of city operations. And I was just curious if there was a specific reason for not using that capability, if indeed it existed, and going to Mr. Thompson.
There are a couple of staff members who do have the background. We have an energy manager who comes from a power background but wasn't involved in rate setting, and a staff member with strong analytical skills that we think Mr. Thompson can help transfer knowledge to us. We're interested in particularly working with large power and light rate, and then on the Atoka pipeline, our largest individual power use, working to manage our peak. And my concern has been whether we understand all of the things we'll have to do to manage the peak well and get the most out of that, both for us and OG&E. I think there may be some good power savings there, but we've got cold feet about it. We have Larry help us get over the cold feet.
So we'll look at being on the proper rate and how to manage our usage to take full advantage of any rate opportunities that are offered. Okay.
Yes.
Further questions? We do have a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? 5F is approved. Item G, which is an updated property rental process.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve. Are there substantial changes in this over what's been done in the past?
We're making it more public, making it so that
More open?
when we have openings, we just have so rarely had vacancies on our land in the past. We didn't really have a process for when the vacancy occurred. And Brett points out, rightly so, that the economic current, being economically current with the city, having paid your other existing utility bills or other bills you may have from the city of Oklahoma City will be a factor.
Well, in the past, I've thought that the rates were very reasonable, what we charge. I mean, if you were a renter, we had and we certainly ought to insist that they do what they've agreed to do. I do have one other question on the previous one about the land that's going to come up. Is Kitchen Lake included in that?
Yes.
So will there be are there two separate tracts of land?
There are three.
Three.
Three separate.
And all
quarter
three will
sections.
come open at the end of the year? Kitchen Lake is one of them? Okay. All right. Well, I know where one of them is because I happen to know the guy that leased the property immediately adjacent to it, and he was a frequent flyer on my cell phone complaining about what was going on across in the adjacent property. So I have a full, I know where one of them is exactly, but I didn't realize Kitchen Lake was under the same ownership. Anyway, we have a motion and a second on item G, do we not? Yes. Any further comments? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Item G is approved. Item H, the resolution between the Water Trust and the Oklahoma City Economic Development Trust adopting a memorandum agreement for the construction of certain infrastructure improvements.
Move approval.
Second.
Motion and a second to approve item 5H. Are there comments? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? 5H is approved. Is there new business? Comments from trustees, staff, citizens? We're adjourned. Thank you. This is one.